Go forth and learn what it means to be a hero.
Dynasty Warriors Origins, the latest in the Dynasty Warriors franchise. Now, I've been playing these games since Dynasty Warriors 2 or 3. I think 3 just because the box art has more of a memory for me than 2, but I might have been playing since 2, back on the PS2. Now, I think somewhere around like 6 and 7, I kind of fell off. I think I was in college. Played 8, and then I skipped 9 because I think everyone said it sucked. And now we are on to Dynasty Warriors Origins. Now, real quick before we get into the full-on review, somewhere around Dynasty Warriors 6 and 7 is when they started to be like, oh, you know what? We can't do the American pronunciations anymore. We have to do the proper enunciations. So if you've never played this game and you're watching this guy used to be called Lord Cow Cow, and now he is called Lord Zhao Zhao. I bring this up because I will be using the old pronunciations because I think if I try to do the Mandarin ones, I won't do any justice. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry, but that's how I'm going to go moving forward. Now, if you haven't played these games or it's been a while, the basic idea is that you pick your character, you kind of hack and slash your way through the battlefield, filling up your Musou, your ultimate meter. You have a special attack. You kind of do that until you get to the leader or the boss of that particular battle. And that's basically what the game is. It is during the Han Dynasty. You pick one of 3 factions. You have Wei, Wu, and Shu. And you kind of just go through those stories, right? And so you see this gameplay and you're like, all right, well, how would you modernize that for 2025, right? We're on the PS5 now. This isn't PS2 days anymore. And that is actually where I think this game sings. The combat is awesome. So if you haven't played the demo or if you haven't played the game, in terms of regular combat, it is way more focused on a straight up blocking, parrying, and dodging out of the way. And this is just basic attacks. So like generals will have this orange attack where you have to straight up just dodge. And if you're fighting a main character, they'll have an orange attack or a red attack if they're really pissed off. And it is unblockable, and it does like a lot of damage. So again, just in terms of basic strong light attack, that has been kicked up a notch. And then they were like, hold on, we got more. So you still have your Musou meter, right? That is your ultimate attack, but they enhanced it by giving you even more of a meter. And if you really fill it up all the way, you can then go into rage mode. So you're stronger, you're faster during that time. And then when you do your Musou, your ultimate attack, you pretty much clear the battlefield. Like you do your sword sweep and there sends a burst out of air, and pretty much like any basic general is dead. Any like main character or like stronger general will take a big chunk of damage, and the NPCs are just cleared out of the way. It is awesome. But again, they were like, hold on, let us cook. So I'm playing on PS5. If you press R1, you now have 4 special moves that you kind of get by building up your bravery. So just by like hitting people, there are these little like I think they're like pentagon shaped, hexagon shaped little crystal thingies that you're filling up, and each special attack costs a certain amount, so you can use those. So depending on your weapon and how you like to play, there's a variety of those. You now have those 4 options on top of your ultimate, on top of your rage mode ultimate. And then as you progress through the game, you press L2 and you are a general, and you have your little guards, or just literally like the NPCs around you that are on your side. You can command them to like do things, as in send out a volley of arrows, or like take your spears or whatever and just straight charge forward and go through the battlefield. And it really makes you feel like you're in charge. And the other thing is like the generals on the other side can do it too. So when you're like in front of a castle and it's just an all-out battle, like you'll see them, because when the enemy does it, their guys will highlight in orange, just like when they're doing their unblockable attacks. And so you'll see like, oh, they commanded their troops to like charge for me, so I gotta dodge out of the way, that way that doesn't hit me. So it just makes the battlefield feel super chaotic and crazy, and it really makes you feel like, yo, I'm in the thick of it right now. And it is awesome. This is where the game really is like, I'm so glad that they figured this out. It feels like a modern game. It feels way more like an action game, not anything crazy like the Elder Scrolls, like Elden Ring, or like a From Software type game. It's nothing crazy like that. It is way more closer to, just like more of an action game that you would have nowadays. And this is where, again, the game is really top of the line. And from here, I think this is where the game really starts to kind of like go down a little bit. Like we're going down the steps a little bit, right? Since we're talking about combat, I want to talk about weapons, right? You're playing a nameless character. So instead of the plethora of weapons that you used to have, you now only have 10 options. I think this is both a good and a bad thing. So again, if you've never played the old games or it's been a while, there used to be 30 to 40 characters and each character had their own unique weapon. No matter what, it was pretty much the same concepts in terms of playing. And what I mean by that is like you have your light attacks with square, you have your heavy attacks with triangle. And back in the day, it would be like, all right, cool. If I press square and triangle, I'm going to do this. If I press square, triangle, I'm going to do that. And so no matter who you were playing, it was pretty much light, heavy, square, and triangle does this, square, triangle does that, so on and so forth. You're losing that variety in terms of this game because you're only playing as the one character, essentially. It makes sense. You wouldn't want to overwhelm a new character with like, here's 40 different weapons. And it's like, I'm spending too much time, testing all of these out. I'm not even really playing the game. So that makes sense of why they pulled back. And I get that. And I think one of the things I actually like about them just sticking to like 10 weapons is that each weapon plays differently. It is no longer square, triangle, square, triangle. Like when you have the sword that you start off with, that is the classic style that I'm talking about. Square, triangle does this, so on and so forth. But like if you put on the claws, you're doing a couple punches, light punches with square. You press triangle, he gets into a stance. If you do square, he like throws his shoulder forward. But if you do triangle, he like stomps the ground. But if you press triangle, he gets into a different stance, right? And you press triangle, he throws like a couple like air punches out. And then if you do square, he does like a barrage of like air punches. So in that way, each weapon has its own different combos, almost like a fighting game. So you really have to learn like, okay, how does this weapon work? How do I like to play this weapon? So it's kind of nice that it's not just like a mindless, like, oh, I'm going to take this and I know how to do this and that or whatever. It's like, no, you really got to learn this weapon. And again, going back to the combat, each weapon has its own individual specials. They're not all the same. So it's like, all right, well, how do I want to play this with this weapon? How do I want to use these 4 specials to really maximize the way that I like to play this weapon? Again, I think that is a good choice if you're going to really, compact it to being like, we're only going to stick to this, subset of weapons. I just kind of miss the variety of weapons just because, it's cool when I'm playing, I forget the guy's name, but he had like, like a buster sword type thing, you know what I mean? Or I'm playing, Ling Tong and he has, nunchucks. And it's like, I kind of miss, the variety. And those old games are there if you have the system or if you know how to acquire the games in some way. But I guess maybe it's just more the nostalgia. There's nothing wrong with, having a smaller subset of weapons. And again, it is kind of nice that you have to actually learn them instead of just mindlessly, mashing buttons. A little bit of good and bad, but more good overall than anything else. But my problem with this is, and this is kind of leading into the next part I want to talk about, is so I guess to not make the character feel like they're missing out, they took some of the main characters and some of their iconic weapons and they gave them one of the 10 that you have to use. And so, for example, like Sun Ce or Zhou Yu, right? Sun Ce has the, like, I forget what they're called, but like you hold a stick and then there's like the little stick over here that I'll put a picture that you kind of use, and like that's been his thing for forever. And now he has the claws that you use. And then Zhou Yu, who had like a curved sword, now has a bow staff. And it's like, whoa, like don't change the characters. Like I get you're trying to bring new people in, but like don't like have the main characters stand out by having their iconic weapons, and it makes them feel, different from just the horde of generic generals that you're constantly fighting on the battlefield, and makes them be like, oh no, I know that guy. Like even if you don't know his name, right? I'm like, oh yeah, that's the that's the guy with the battle axe, or that's the guy with the katana or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think taking that away from them is like, what the hell? It'd be like if you played Final Fantasy and Cloud didn't have his Buster Sword. Like, what are we doing? Like, keep everyone the same. So that I thought was a bad choice. I was like, keep the characters unique. Let them stand out. Like, what are we doing? I know in my head, they probably just didn't want like new players to feel like left out, but I think that was an odd choice. But speaking of characters, let's get into the nameless man himself. And that's where I immediately have a problem. So this game lets you play as this nameless character. So you can input whatever you want to call them, and the game will kind of have that in the subtitles. At first, it kind of bothered me because the characters almost feel like the voice actors feel almost like sometimes they like pause a beat to where your name would be.
Yes, thank you. You've given us all so much hope.
Eventually I got over it because I was like, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was in my head. But like 2 hours in, they start calling you Zilawan, which is like your nickname. And so half of the game, it took me like 20 hours to beat the first campaign because there's the 3 factions. So I picked the one and I beat it. And so half the time they're calling you whatever you typed in, and the other half of the time they're calling you Zilawan. And I was like, if you're gonna give me a name, you might as well have. I would have preferred if there was like something generic that they just called me at first, like the Mandarin word for like quiet or whatever, because my character doesn't really talk, you know what I mean? And then be like, you know what, we should actually give you a proper name. We're going to call you Zilawan, or like give me like 3 names to pick from. Where when you start like Ghost of Tsushima, it's like, what do you want to call your horse? And there's like 3 options. Like give me some generic option and then call me that later, rather than you giving me the option to put in my own name and then be like, but half the time we're just going to call you this other name anyways. So it's like, what's the point? And especially if you're going to have the voice actors kind of pause a beat to where my name would be, just have me have a generic name and then have the rest of the game, everyone calls me Zilawan. Like, what's the problem here? You know what I'm saying? Like, the answer is in the question or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense, but I knew what I meant. I thought that was odd. And in terms of Zilawan, I could not give a single fuck about that character. He has a backstory. You are a guardian of peace. You are meant to help the realm choose the proper leader that will bring peace to the land. And I think it was a really odd choice that the people that are helping you try to regain your memories because you have amnesia. The one girl, it's like, is she a real person? Is she not? The little boy, like, literally at some point he actually starts fading away. Like, he'll talk to you and then you look back and then he's just gone. So it makes your character feel almost more of like an angelic being, or like some sort of higher being, just because it's like, oh, we're supposed to like lead the realm, and the characters you're talking to are like literally like disappearing, and it's like, what the hell's going on? And Dynasty Warriors has always had a splash of anime in it, right? There's sometimes where someone's doing a thing and you're like, that would never happen if this was real, but like, whatever. Or just the fact that they can do like a special where I can like send out a shockwave that clears the area makes no sense, you know what I mean? But other than that, I feel like the world has always been really grounded, and I just felt like this whole like Guardian of Peace, like, people are fading away from your conversations, just made him feel like, again, like almost like he was like an angel or like some sort of higher being. And I was just like, you're kind of getting away from the plot, honestly. Like, we're almost jumping the shark. Not too much, but we're getting there. And by the time I got to the end of his story, I was like, I could not give a single fuck about Zilawan. And they give you the option when you're like talking to characters to like pick your dialogue, but I mean, I just couldn't connect with him. And when you're so used to playing the 30 plus characters and getting to know them, it's like, well, I'd rather play one of them than this character that just isn't interesting in any way. Having this character was just a real drawback for me. And my favorite one is Dynasty Warriors 4, where you like make your own character and you have your own set of bodyguards, and you can kind of go out. I was like, I kind of wish they would just did that, where I could make my own generic character, I pick a faction, maybe I can like recruit some of the characters I know to be underneath me, I think that would have been way more of a positive for the game, because then it would have felt more of like my character, and it makes sense of like, well, I'm just kind of a soldier that's rising up the ranks. I don't really need to have like dialogue, rather than having this like nameless, memoryless assassin type person that they want me to care about that I just didn't care about. Anyways, let's move on. The biggest sin of this game is the overworld. They have you walk around, collect crystals, collect old coins. You have to go to major cities. This is where you get your shops, where you can like buy new weapons, or you can go back to the inn and you can like open letters that people send to you, and you can like change your outfit and stuff like that. When you're walking around, you can see little skirmishes that you can do, like anywhere from like 30 seconds to like a minute. Get some little XP, get in, get out. There's like different areas where you can like bring peace to that specific province. This is where you ride over, you pick the little flag, you get your major battle out the way. This is where you run into people, and you have to like walk over to them if they're even in the area. You click on them, you gotta play a little cutscene where they talk to you. You go back out to the overworld, you talk to them again, they're like, oh, here's some objectives you can do on the battlefield. And it just feels so fucking padded. Like, this game is clearly a game that was like anywhere from like 5 to 10 hours long, and they're like, how do we make this game 20 to 30 hours long? And it's this fucking overworld, and I don't need it, and it's so extra. And again, like when you have to like ride over, talk to someone, talk to them again, like it's like, like put it on. Like the old games were just cutscenes. Like you play the cutscene, you're in the next battle, you play the cutscene, you're in the next battle. Like I don't know why we did all this extra bullshit other than to pad the game and just have it be longer than it really has to be. Like this game, I feel like if they would have just been straightforward, and even if you played all 3 factions, you'd probably finish this whole game without doing a bunch of extra stuff in like 30 hours. But that's you playing 3 different stories. You know what I mean? Instead, it's like, if one took me 20 hours, you're looking at what, 60 hours to get all 3 done if you want to play from the beginning each time. It's just like, my god, like it doesn't need to be this long. And one of the perks of specifically 4, which I'm going to stick with because it's my favorite, is exploring the battlefield, because you open boxes, you beat generals. This is how you get new weapons, this is how you get new horses, this is how you get general items that help you on the battlefield. In that game, you could have a pet to like kind of fight by your side. So this is how you find new pets, like a bear or like a tiger or something like that. And in this game, like, again, you go to the overworld and you go to like a city, and this is where you shop. And like, yeah, sure, you get weapons from like generals and stuff, but like I hit a point in the game where you could buy like the legendary versions of the weapons that you have just from the shop. So I was like, okay, well, I really don't need to run around beating these generals hoping to like get this weapon, when I know I can just grind for money and then just straight up buy it. When it comes to certain items or horses, that's where you would just kind of go over to, some sort of side mission, and then it would be like, hey, if you do this, you'll get this thing. But the game, I don't remember the game telling me that. It was just kind of like, oh, I went over and I happened to read that it said like, hey, you'll get this if you happen to do this. But it wasn't like incentivized to like, hey, if you want to get this new thing, you got to go do that thing. It just happened to be something I discovered. And instead of that being interesting, it was just like, oh, so I could have missed this if I didn't decide to do the side mission. But then you have to kind of do the side missions because the game level caps you. So you go to do a main mission and it's like, oh, this is level 32 and you're only level 30. And if you feel like, oh, maybe you're not that good at the game, or maybe you just want to keep up with, whatever level you want to be at, then you have to go out and grind, right? And so instead of having general exploration of just kind of going through the battlefield like it used to be, now everything becomes more of a numbers game, right? And you're like, all right, well, now I'm being generals just so I get more experience. Now I'm clearing out the board just so I can stay level, or at least one level behind. Or yeah, now I'm just doing, you know, side missions because I know that there are items, you know. So it takes away from just kind of naturally going through the battlefield and being like, oh, what can I find? And everything's now like points and levels. And even sometimes when you do the side missions that are like 30 seconds to like a minute long, I remember doing some of them like, all right, let me level up a little bit. And it's like, here's 100 points and I need like 20,000 points to get to the next level. It's like, what the hell? You want me to do like 20 of these? Like, what's going on here? So I think just the whole like overworld thing really fucked up this game. Like, this game was pretty solid, like the way it used to be. And I think this is just padding. It just didn't work and it takes away so much of the game. Now, there is a new game plus, which is nice. You can carry pretty much everything over, and you get to pick where you want to start. So instead of starting all the way back at the beginning, you can get to a certain part in the game and be like, all right, cool, this is where I'm going to decide which faction I'm going to align myself with. Again, you keep everything. So you have all your skills, you have all your weapons. It really makes you feel like a badass. But also, if you're someone who enjoys a challenge, definitely put it like level... what's the word I'm looking for? Increase the difficulty. Because I'm currently running around at normal. I'm on my like third playthrough. I'm hitting the final faction, and I'm just cruising through. Like, I'm basically untouchable, which I like. I like playing New Game Plus to feel like a demigod, so that's my thing. But if you want more of a challenge, for sure, increase the difficulty. And I think they even have a thing called like challenge mode or something like that. And definitely put that on. But yeah, I know I say all these things, right? And it feels like I don't like this game. If I didn't like this game, I wouldn't beat it. I wouldn't continue to play it. That's not my style. I think the thing for me, as I was really playing this game and thinking about like, what is this thing that I'm feeling, is that if this franchise continues, and this being the first jumping off point for new players and just kind of like a new genre, right? Because it's Dynasty Warriors Origins. We're kind of like a soft reboot. I just feel like if they continue with this style, that maybe these games just aren't for me anymore. And that might be too extreme, but maybe it's like, all right, cool, the mindless, fun variety of characters, 8 out of 10 experience where it's like an action blockbuster where I'm just in it to have fun, you know what I mean? Maybe that experience is gone and it is more of like, cool, I'm gonna play these games, but they're all gonna be this 6-7 out of 10 experience going forward, and maybe just what it is just isn't what it is anymore. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I just feel like I keep seeing all these games lately where people are playing it and they're fans of the franchise, and it's just like, oh, I think this just isn't what it used to be, and I'll have to go back and play the old games. And I think maybe this franchise is just kind of another one of those games where it's just like, this isn't what it is anymore. This is now the new thing. But I think a way to really get back on board would be if we brought back let me play as the characters I know with the weapons I know. I think that would boost the game up for me, because even if I have to run around this stupid overworld, at least I can be the character I actually like and play through their story, rather than giving me a character I don't care about and having me see all the characters that I actually like and be like, man, I really wish I was him. I don't know. We'll see what they do with the franchise, and I do actually hope that we get another one. But yeah, I don't know. I give this game 7.5 out of 10. I know some people loved it. I think IGN gave it like a 9. That's just how I feel. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Peace.